All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again with another Experiences Living Abroad. I am here with Michelle, Healing Mickey. How are you, Hannah?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on board today.
Yes, I got to tell our viewers that Mickey was one of my first friends that I met when I came to Portugal.
Sure.
And she's just been awesome. So I want to tell you about her and her business and how she came to Portugal and all the other countries that you lived in. So let's start off with Mickey. Where are you from?
Well, I'm born in Harare, Zimbabwe, Africa, a long way away, on a sugarcane farm.
And tell me more about that. So how'd you go from Africa? What was your first country that you moved to?
Well, we had to leave because there was a war going on there. So we moved to Beirut, and we had to leave there because there was a war going on there too.
How did your parents pick the country?
Well, my dad was in the corporate business, so he didn't pick. He got picked to go where he went.
Gotcha.
So I moved all my life. Let's see, Lebanon, Holland, Spain, Canada, all sorts of countries, Saudi Arabia, Britain. And then when I found Portugal, I stayed.
So from all of the countries you went to and you stayed in Portugal, how did you decide that you were going to move to Portugal in the first place?
Well, the classic, I fell in love with somebody here.
There. Been there, done that, got the postcard, and then crashed it.
Make you move, and I'm very glad about that. It didn't last, but I'm still here. Two gorgeous kids later, and I'm here. I love Portugal. It's absolutely brilliant. Ticks all my boxes.
It does that for a lot of people. So talk about some of your transition in your adulthood to the various countries and what led you to those various locations. Like what inspired you to kind of switch your country every so often?
I think I started choosing when I was working in London. I woke up one day and just thought, what am I doing here? It's not for me. And I moved back to Africa and went to Madagascar, traveled around. And the idea was to have some space to decide where I wanted to live. And I chose Spain from there. And I loved it there. I trained there. And then when I met my husband-to-be, I moved to Portugal. Actually, I always wanted to live here. So it sort of worked for me in that sense. I love the idea of living in a capital city near the sea that was warm and sunny. It sort of had that African necessity about me ticked, and it sort of fell into place. I didn't make the decision to move here myself. Fell in love and then moved here, and I always wanted to be here. So it worked its way through.
Yeah. So talk to me about this London job and what were you feeling that made you feel like you couldn't do this anymore?
I was working for a professional photographer's lab, black and white lab, and I loved the job, but it was the city, the noise, the pollution, the stress, the amount of time you traveled every day. That was hard going. That wasn't my bag, and not quite green enough, I need a bit more green and a bit more sunshine. So I reached a point of thinking, I can't be here forever. And that was the beginning of leaving. And I remember being in Africa and thinking, I'm not going back to Britain. No, I need the sun.
So when you decide to leave Britain, what was your, like, how did you transition to the next country? Like, how did you transition your job, or like, what did you do there?
I had some old friends and cousins there, and I went and visited them in Cape Town and had time to think, just had time to settle down with the currency exchange rate as it is. I had time just to think, and I just loved the essential oils. So I decided I'll train as a masseuse and a reflexologist. So I came back to Europe and did that in Spain, and there my career took off. It was small steps.
Talk about that transition. So what were you doing before in London? I mean, you said you worked at the photography labs, but what were you doing specifically? And then that transition, your complete career transition, when you moved. Talk about that.
Well, I decided that, when you work for somebody, there's only a certain amount of growth you can have in a small company. And I'd reached that level. And I wanted to fulfill myself in a different way that I could become really good at what I am at. I wanted to be able to say, I am Michelle and I do this, rather than help someone's accounts. It seemed so sort of dead end to a point. I mean, it gave me a lot of experience, but it wasn't the be all and end all.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's nearly 30 years I've been an aromatherapist. So it worked. That decision to stop something and shut doors opens new doors. That's for sure.
So because there's going to be a lot of people who are listening to this that are thinking about a transition and even thinking about moving abroad and maybe changing their career altogether. So when you stopped doing your normal career in England and you moved, was it when you moved that you realized, okay, you wanted to get in this field of aromatherapy, or like, how did that transition? And then what did you do? Did you start taking classes, reading books? How'd that work?
I read books and I used essential oils, and I just became so close to them and understood them and told everyone about them, because this was a while ago when not a lot of people knew about aromatherapy. And I'd always had a bottle and saying, oh, you got a cold, try this, you got a headache, try that. You know, I got really involved in it. And I actually did work in the photography field a bit in Cape Town, but I decided I really wanted something more fulfilling. That if you can develop your skill set so that you can move, as in my business can be anywhere. You don't even have to speak the language just about, you know, you just need to understand a bit about anything that's wrong with them. But it's good to come with a job opportunity.
Oh, definitely. I always advocate that whether you're getting money online or doing something, a particular set of skills, you want to come, you know, either high valued so you can get a job, or definitely have your own job when you go to any country.
And I think you have to sit down and decide what ticks your box and what country would do that. So I needed sunshine. I don't like heavy population. I really wanted to be in a place, you know, what's important for you. And once you realize what's important for you, you can narrow down the options of where would be a good place to live. And also the same with a career. You know, what suits you? What don't you want? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to work alone? You know, there's so many questions to ask yourself that then you can figure out the choices. It makes it easier to make those choices. And I think there's nothing more important than getting out of bed for a job you love. And it's sad to get out of bed for a job just to pay the bills. Because quality of life is really important.
Now, Michelle, I've met her on the Airbnb experience. So I've been into essential oils, definitely not as educated as Michelle, but I have been using essential oils for like at least the past 10 years. And I believe in the powers and I'm all here for it. So when I saw her, she advertised an Airbnb experience. And when I first came to Lisbon, I pretty much planned my whole trip through Airbnb, which I probably wouldn't do again, but I met Michelle, so that was great. And she had a very exciting class that teaches you about aromatherapy, and that's how we met. And talk about even your process of even advertising with Airbnb or helping maybe entrepreneurs use that as kind of a way of getting more customers.
It works really well at the moment. And Airbnb are now launching online as well because of COVID. So that's one way of getting more customers. I enjoyed that experience and got used to working online from it as well, which is a new step because obviously I work with my hands one-to-one. So working with a computer is a different perspective for me. Otherwise, I use other platforms to gain more clients. And changing career, I think you need experience and then to get out there. It's just fabulous. And even the hands-on work, I never thought I'd be able to do it through the computer. So
a lot of people
very
like
interesting. Yeah, it really is very interesting to do that. I had to do a little bit of research on how to do that. But
yes, because when I met Mickey, I was like, you got too much information. You need to be online.
Yes. Well, I guess next is the books, you know, got to write some books, but step by step.
And all that good stuff. We'll talk about
I like to give workshops and how people can use oils themselves at home and self-reflexology and other ways that you can help yourself at home. I call it my clients' homework. You know, go home and do your own work with the oils rather than just book all the time, you know.
Right.
It's great. It's feedback.
And you also source the oils as well, right? Because I'm gonna tell you specifically the peppermint oil. I think I need more tea tree oil. And Mickey's located in Cascais. You're still in Cascais now, right? Yeah. So the peppermint oil and the tea tree oil was more potent than anything I've ever gotten in the States. So definitely check out Mickey to get your sources and your oils if you are in Portugal, because she has some of the best high premium stuff. When I got there, she made some lavender tea. And when she said this, I get my lavender from the south of France, I was like, girl, I'm sold. I'm sold. Let's do this. You sourcing it in the places it grows, I'm here for it. So no, that's great. So when you moved to Portugal, your husband was Portuguese?
Swedish.
So how did you guys work the visas and everything needed to stay in Portugal?
Originally, still actually the same. You just need to get a residencia. Portuguese residencia, which entails proof of where you live and, you know, your economy. And I suppose it depends which country you come from.
Right.
European base, that works. Okay.
And but you didn't come from a European base. So how did that work? Is it because you married a European?
No, I have a British passport.
You have a British passport. Okay, got it.
Which was European until the end of this year.
Right.
And that you renew every 5 years and you eventually get permanent residencia. And then after, I think it's 6 years, you're entitled to have Portuguese citizenship.
Right. And
and you need to be able to speak Portuguese and will be tested.
Right. That's the part I'm really insecure about.
Yeah. I passed.
Indeed. So Mickey, tell me, how do you think your moving abroad has changed your perspective on life?
I think you really have an opportunity of deciding what you want to do and where you want to do it in your life. So it made me tick those boxes and say, okay, I really want to be in the sunshine. I want to be near the sea. I don't want to be in a densely populated, noisy city. It made me realize that we are free to make choices if we can get to that country and get the right documentation to stay. So it empowered me a lot to make the decisions as to what makes me happy, where will that be, you know, rather than finding myself, you know, in my 70s going, I'm still in London. You know? And it's a great place for when you're young. It's a really fabulous city, but, you know, I'm born on a farm. It's not my scene. And I think a lot of people live their lives without making those questions as to where do I want to be, you know. What would suit me? It's sort of daunting, but you can get there. You know, make your choices.
And you moved a lot, so you were used to kind of figuring out if this country feels good or if this country doesn't feel good.
Well, it was my dad's business that made us move a lot, and I just got used to it. But when I found Portugal and realized it was ticked all my boxes, it's just been so incredible what it feels like as a mover to stay in one place and more than 2 years of my life and actually make connections, you know, and have connections in, you know, all sorts of parts of the town, the local town, and be able to walk into the bank and know the bank manager and the doctors and you become part of the community. That was a new experience to me. And I love that. And you can bump into people and, you know, you feel safe. It's a different way of being.
So I have a question of like, what advice would you give those individuals who are thinking about moving abroad, but more importantly, those individuals who have like probably maybe never left the country at all to know and want to move abroad?
I think there's one thing you got to realize is that every country has their own social code and it'll be completely different. And when you get there, you have to adapt. Don't try and make it home because you will always pine for home then. And, you know, if it doesn't suit you, fair enough, but try and look at the positive sides of it. And there will be things that are so different, but they might not be such hurdles after a while to get over. You know, it's not that hard if you go for the positive side of it. You know, it depends what suits you and what doesn't suit you. And give it 3 years.
Give it 3 years in one place?
I thought so. So I really felt at home. Yeah, really.
That's a long time to figure out if you want to stay somewhere.
Well, you might be able to figure it out before, but it took me 3 years to really settle in here and say hi to people on the street and get the language better. And you know, the language, of course, is quite a barrier. You know?
Yeah, language is a huge barrier. So you're not saying it takes 3 years to find out if you want to be there. You mean to just like set it in roots and that type of thing. If you don't like the place you've been, how long does it take you to make that adjustment or to decide you don't want to be here?
That depends on the job you've got and the friends you've made as well. You know, I think it depends on what suits you. I know I would never live in a cold country. So if I found myself living in a very cold country, I'd be out very quickly. So it varies, you know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, Mickey, I appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for your time, for coming and speaking to us. And we'll be sure, guess she has some of the best essential oils I've experienced. So we will be sure to put her information down there. Michelle, I met you as Mickey, so I keep calling her Mickey. Michelle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Letting me share some stories.
Absolutely. We got to do some other stuff together. Like what I would love if we get on YouTube and talk about some of these oils together and
educate
and
what you can make with them.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. I look forward to that. Thank you.
We got to do that real soon. And I'm going to see you in person. We're going to eat some food and stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Experiences Living Abroad. Thanks for joining us. We know you could be anywhere. You decide to be here with us, and we appreciate it. Till next time.
Bye-bye.